This is me, on top.
What a view.
Of a freefall Brunswick A2 pinsetter. We were roaming the pit looking at a stroke of 1960s genius.
And you can't see it all. 32 machines, 2,000 moving parts. It's kind of hard.
These miraculous, profoundly impractical machines are going extinct. They're being replaced around the world by pins dangling from nylon cords, like cheap puppets. So why did the owners of this independent alley move this 2,000-pound machine hundreds of miles just to save it?
It was a challenge, but we did it.
I wanted to understand why anyone would fight to keep this 60-year-old mechanical monster and why others would flee it. And what I found was an economic reality forcing every bowling alley to make one of the hardest choices in the history of bowling.
You see the mural behind us, the theme that we just repainted was based on the beach.
So this is Dan, the owner of Century Lanes in Hampton, Virginia.
I feel like crabs are not actually allowed on bowling lanes.
Yes, but there was a bunch of crabby bowlers.
Yeah, exactly.
We wanted to keep like a retro feel, hence the black and white tile and some of the colors that we had that's kind of neutral. But these are old Brunswick ball returns, and they are also extremely old. Very rare to find. We have no intentions on replacing them with something modern because they work great. And the nostalgic look of them is just amazing.
He showed me around along with Ken and Richard. This is from another video when they were installing their vintage A2. At the time, I didn't even know that pro shops are often leased inside bowling centers, and Dan came alive when he talked about his.
The best part about this is taking someone who walks in that door that doesn't understand all the nuances of what goes behind Joe and the ball. And once they go out and they bowl their first 200 game, they bowl their first 300, their reaction and their smile is worth everything that we do.
Dan ran one while he was in the Marine Corps, and he clearly loves it, just like he loves every detail about this place.
This bar counter, I built this. This is the original Maple Lanes.
Oh, sweet.
So we took, and you see how thick that is.
Of course, the highlight for me was standing on the lane. This is me thinking to myself over and over again, I'm standing on a lane, I'm standing on a lane, I'm standing on a lane. And going back to the pit. That is actually lower down because that allows the pins to fall down. And you can see how these Brunswick A2s work and how much work they take. This isn't world-class cinematography, but you can see that the pins fall back here. Then they get scooped up, and then they're deposited to drop in the exact right location. It is beautiful.
That's it. Wow.
When you look at the patent application, to me, it is almost identical to a Rube Goldberg illustration. Yet it is for something that is real. For Dan, there's no question. He has to use the freefall pinsetter.
And this is the famous 31 and 32 that came all the way from New Hampshire. Wow. And still got a lot of work to go on them. Just getting them from New Hampshire to here, we were in 100-degree heat in the middle of a blacktop. It was so hot where if you're working on one thing, you go reach for a wrench, it'd burn your hand from seeing it in the sun.
But that is becoming a more and more difficult choice to make. This is a string pin bowling machine. This patent represents one possible future for bowling, one in which pins are tied to strings and just yoinked back up. This promo video is for Cubica AMF, but the one for Brunswick's offering is the same. This one by Funk, a company that claims to have originated string pin bowling, even has a conversion video in which they show a freefall pinsetter being replaced by a string pin. My honest reaction is these things suck, take them away. And I feel like a lot of bowlers feel that way too, but I wanted to understand, why do I feel that way? And why is there still a risk that they'll take over?
The USBC equipment specification staff conducted research into the use of string pinsetters.
The first question is, how much do these actually change the sport of bowling? And the evidence there, it is muddy and it's kind of subjective how you interpret it. Okay, so I just want to be clear about some of the most common issues that can happen with string pin bowling. So I'm going to give you a super simplified explanation using my mic stand and some blue tape. Okay, so these are just a few different things that can happen with string pins that wouldn't happen with typical freefall pins. Not a comprehensive list. First, you can imagine a pin getting knocked down, right? And then when it's knocked down, the string somehow tangles with another pin. The pin doesn't knock into the pin, but the strings intertwine, and this pin gets knocked down unfairly. But the bigger and more important issue is the idea of pin carry. Basically, when you bowl, your pins bounce off the walls, they bounce everywhere, and that can make a bunch of other pins fall down. String pins reduce carry. So this pin might get knocked down, but instead of bouncing here and knocking down a bunch of pins, the string could, in theory, keep it from knocking down the other pins. And that's a problem, especially if you're a good bowler. That's the reason that the people who are trying to make string pins more legit are frequently debating the string length so that the string is long enough to allow some carry, but also prevents tangling. You can see that this is innately going to change the sport. Let's bowl one.
Is this something that you wish you could unsee? Me too.
Those string pins killed my strike. The United States Bowling Congress has conducted a couple of studies using their bowling robot, Earl. This 2025 study was the most recent one that I was able to find, and I thought it was pretty damning. They found an overall scoring difference of 3.4 pins lower on string pinsetters. So if you're a really good bowler and you average over 210 a game, you would experience a 7-pin decrease on average. This is equivalent to 2 less strikes per 3-game set. There are now 66 centers with 10,000 bowlers that are reporting their averages. This trend line right here, it shows how the average gets worse the better you are as a bowler. But despite this, the USBC has certified certain lengths of string as being okay. Why are they embracing this and endorsing some of these string pins?
All bowling is good for the growth of the sport, and this new form of the game should be enjoyed by all participants in a way that is fair, consistent, and in adherence with the rules of the sport.
I think there are a few reasons. First, the USBC has a financial relationship with the Professional Bowlers Association, the PBA, which is owned by Bolero, a large, publicly traded, but basically private equity controlled firm that has publicly pushed for string pins. They believe that string pins are the future. It saves Bolero money so they can focus on their true passion, which is selling snacks.
There's the dirty sodas. Points, dirty sodas.
And booze. They have pushed string pins at PBA events, and they've even used the PBA channel to promote the string pin cause. Now, I've watched some of these USBC and PBA videos, and I feel like these are the type of guys who would really get their feathers ruffled at any allegation of impropriety, but that sets up this narrative that this is a private equity funded thing driven to kill bowling. But the truth, well, I would argue that there is an even bigger tension that runs throughout the history of bowling. Imagine a classic bowling alley. In the 1930s, the people in the back were loading the pins themselves. This is a pinboy, and for decades, these men and boys were the workhorses of bowling. They manually picked up pins and put them in the right spot, and then technology changed it. Around 1940, a man who had previously invented a carton opening device came up with a new invention, a bowling pin setting apparatus. This set off a multi-decade technology boom that changed bowling. Pinboys rapidly became unemployed. This didn't just change the economics of the sport, it changed the feel. Bowling had been this exclusively working class thing. I found this 1966 letter from a psychiatric journal. It's from a former pinboy, and he's saying, "Pin setting for me was more than just a way of earning money. It was a way of life. A pinsetter's life was carefree for the most part. He knew there would always be work to be had, because pinsetters were scarce, and good ones were really hard to find. He did not have to be nice to his boss or the customers. Usually, he was a man who could not conform to the ethics of society. Can we get a Pinboy movie? There should totally be a supervillain called Pinboy. A man who liked to drink, though not necessarily a drunkard. He got paid every day, averaging about $175 an hour. It was easy come, easy go, and why not? There was always tomorrow. If something happened that he didn't like, he would quit and be certain of employment in another establishment the very next day. Pinboy scarcity often delayed meets and kept bowling small. The robot Pinboy was a revolution, and AMF sold this to the masses with friendly robot mascots. By 1952, the human Pinboy was already a vanishing American. The bowling boom began. Centers were everywhere, enabled by technology and a new family-friendly vibe. Women were suddenly flocking to lanes.
I want to bowl too. My name is Sharon. I'm from the 1950s.
Oh, that sounds great, Sharon. And bowling has always been changing in response to economic incentives. It's not just about the feel, it's about money. This is the website for Cubica AMF. If you go onto their Edge string product, which you can see right here, they actually give you an operational cost-saving estimator. So we'll say the A2. We'll say that the machines are 40 years old, 32. Are we having trouble finding qualified mechanics? I'll say yes. We'll go with $25 an hour. Let's just go ahead and say 30, the default parts expense as well. I've done this at kind of boilerplate, and this calculator estimates that you could save $52,000 a year across the center. And right here, there's a checkbox to get a phone call from a Cubica AMF representative. So it makes sense why a big, relatively heartless firm like Bolero would want to shift to these pinsetters, but it gets even more complicated because independent bowling alleys have an incentive to switch as well. If you go on Tin Pin Doctor, a bowling website, a lot of the bowling alleys they index that use string pins are independent operators. It's also just hard to maintain free-fall pin setters when labor is in short supply.
These machines are always never going to be as good as he is, right?
Yeah.
And he's really the future and the heart of the place, and the other guys that work here in order to help me be successful as a business owner and Jonathan as a business owner. They're the heart and soul of the place. Without those guys, this place just close the doors. Don't even open the doors.
The tutorial videos for the string pin setters show just how easy it is to have anybody untangle some pins. Free fall pin setters take a lot more work. At Century Lanes, they have a shipping container full of extra parts because they can't be found elsewhere. Ken told me that technicians like him and Richard are hard to find.
And believe it or not, we are a dying breed.
Yeah.
People don't want to do this.
Right. I imagine it's hard to just find people who can do it. I mean, yeah.
People now these days, unfortunately, go the cheapest way, which is string machines.
You could argue that the same way that the automatic pin setter set off a bowling boom, string pins could save bowling because of the reduced cost. You could argue that, but I don't want to.
Use this recent photo.
So am I just the old man yelling at a cloud? I went to a Bolero, and it actually still had free fall pins. And they had some changes that were cool. I loved the bumpers that went down for different players, but I couldn't see the bowling alley. And the girlfriend of the former Prime Minister of Canada was trying to distract everyone while I was bowling. There are a lot of wrong changes that a corporation might decide to do, but that someone who loves bowling never would. Dan embraces change. He is a totally game actor in these social media skits. They even use synthetic lanes instead of wood. But ditching the A2 pin setter is a line that he will not cross. Why?
I won't go to string pins until I absolutely have to. I want a free fall bowling center. I want the originals. I want bowling the way it's supposed to be. And terrible analogy, but it's like if you're a golfer, do you want a string attached to your ball so when you hit it, then you just pull the string back and reset the ball? Sounds great and convenient. And as a business perspective, from a business ownership, string pins are absolutely fabulous because it's it's less maintenance, less cost, less personnel. You don't even need a mechanic in the back. You can do big time. It's like a 70%, 30%, I don't know what it is, for electricity consumption.
Right.
But at the same time, it's not the same of what bowling was designed to be.
I think the league bowlers who optimize their shoes and their balls and the oil patterns on their lanes, they've got a good data-driven case for why string pin setting is not acceptable in competition. But I think they should feel free to admit that there's something else wrong with string pins. Brunswick and Cubica sell free fall pin setters. I think bowlers should demand them. Why do we want to slide a ball down a lane to make pins fall down? It is an inherently irrational thing. Why would you take your lunch break to bowl? Because a strike is beautiful. The string pin element makes eminent practical sense, but it ignores the fact that bowling is a deeply impractical thing. It doesn't matter how many bowling robots you enlist to make the case. We aren't bowling robots. We made our robots out of thousands of pieces, working in concert to make pins stand up straight, because we thought the way they fell down was cool. That isn't true because of data regression and sample sizes. It's true because we're human. All right, thank you to the team at Century Lanes for talking to me about this video. So go visit them if you're in the area. They aren't the sponsor of this video. The sponsor of the video is me, and it's my Patreon. So if you go over on Patreon, I have a free newsletter, that I publish every time a video comes out. It goes out to more than 6,000 people, and they get an update that I've put out a video, and they also get an extra free article about something I couldn't get into in the video itself. This week, I'm going to talk about Bolero's role in possibly taking over bowling in a little more depth. So go over there, free to sign up for, and you can check that out. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.